Hello, everyone, and welcome to Week 7 in Daily Fantasy Football. Huge week, only 2 teams on bye. We actually have a ton of high total games. Kind of surprising. You open up your Daily Fantasy app of choice, you open up DraftKings, you open up Underdog, and you were going to be like, wow, there are a lot of options. Deebo Samuel is the 10th best wide receiver on this slate, not the second best wide receiver on this slate. I am overjoyed at the amount of options we have this week. We also have a ton of injuries to watch out for. We have some very high scoring players who are questionable. Malik Neighbors is questionable. Jordan Mason is questionable. Guys who rank at the absolute top of their position. What we are going to do today, we are going to outline the early skeleton keys, the information and the data that you need to know to win in Battle Royale in Week 7, to win in daily drafts on Underdog Fantasy in Week 7. It's honestly, to me, heading into Week 7, this is the best week of the season that I have felt. I have not opened up a slate and been more overwhelmed by the options. Last week, I'm going to be honest, it was a real grind to get through some of those drafts last week. I do not feel that way this week. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's enter into our very first draft. It's back $50,000 for first place this week. $7 entry. I personally, the way I feel, I actually really do enjoy. I really do enjoy the $50,000 up top sweat. You can see last week my results were not great. I entered 150 teams. I only cashed for $290. Davis, why did you only cash for $219? Well, I'll show you why. Chris Godwin, I only had on 10 teams. Chris Godwin was on my best team: Derrick Henry, Drake London, Chris Godwin, Josh Jacobs, Baker Mayfield, but Dalton Schultz with him, Josh Jacobs with him. Not great. Bigger issue, though, is I barely had any Baker Mayfield. I might have only had one. No, I had 2 Baker Mayfield teams, and one of them, this one is going to be with Mike Evans. Sure, Mike Evans, the double stack there with Kate Otten. I was also, continue to be pretty stubborn about, I am personally pretty stubborn about the 2 running back stuff, even with scoring being a little bit different. My results, just going to be honest, they were not very good last week. The winning team, Goat Napped, who is a member of the community. You guys, I'm sure, have seen him around the streets. This is just a great team, right? So he does the 2 running backs who just score touchdowns: Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson. He does Trey McGronk, beautiful. He does Chris Godwin, beautiful. He does Terry McLaurin without Jaden Daniels, which is a huge swerve. The combinatorial pairings. Let's just take a look at this. Roster players: Terry McLaurin. He was drafted on 8,803 teams. How many of them were with Jaden Daniels? 3,900 of them. Terry McLaurin without Jaden Daniels is going to be only 8% of teams, and obviously a huge amount of money won in that outcome. So that is a quick look back at the week that was. I think that stuff is pretty interesting. Now let's go ahead and get into it. We are going to outline the league winners. Nick is commenting about Tony Pollard. Well, Pollard was a big skeleton key for me last week. I honestly felt pretty good about that call. Remember, we did the early week video on Tuesday last week, and we highlighted Pollard when he was, I believe, the running back 11 who was going in the 6th round. Pollard ended up being a 3rd round pick on average. I believe the running back 7 when the contest closed on Sunday. Well, we already might get this one thrown out because Sam Darnold just went with the 1st overall pick. However, we are going to do early in the week. I'm of 2 minds about this. I do feel like it's basically the absolute nutted spot for Saquon Barkley. Not only is it a revenge game for one Mr. Saquon Barkley, but it's formulaically set up to be a spot where the Eagles are just going to run the ball a ton. In the words of Lane Johnson, this offense looks constipated, right? So if the offense looks constipated, how do you fix that? Well, you're going to hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley a ton. He's got 5 touchdowns this season. I also wonder if it's going to be one of those things that reverts itself later in the week. Sometimes you can find yourself on the wrong end of this. I found myself on the wrong end of this last week, particularly with Lamar Jackson. I thought the quarterback would the ball. I thought Lamar would be feeling much later. That did not happen. I would imagine that as more drafts continue, I think Barkley ends up moving up. I think Barkley ends up moving up higher with these. Wow. All right. Huge breaking news. We can come back to this draft in a moment. Rap Sheet reports the Raiders are completing a trade of star wide receiver Davante Adams to the Jets. Sources say back with his good friend Aaron Rodgers as Las Vegas moves on. I mean, that is a pretty big deal, man. That is as seismic of a move as you can get in fantasy football. Can you guys remember a bigger in-season trade? I really can't. The wide-ranging fantasy ramifications of this, incredible. Yeah, only for a 3rd round pick, Davante Adams to the Jets. I got to be honest, this is really, really quite bad for Garrett Wilson. I know Garrett Wilson has played well, but if you look at these peak seasons from Davante Adams, so let's look at his absolute nutted peak season. So let's look at 2018 for the Green Bay Packers. This was one of his first real breakout seasons. Basically no meat left on the bone for anyone else. That is a huge issue. The pace of play is a big issue in this spot. So Davante Adams had 169 targets that season. Jimmy Graham had 89. MVS had 73. Only 9 games for Randall Cobb, but not particularly involved. Only 4.2 receptions per game. Then a bunch of other guys, Aaron Jones, very young. Equanimous St. Brown, very young. And I don't love that. Maybe there's let's see if we can find something encouraging here. All right, the OG breakout season, or the big touchdown season, 18 touchdowns in 2020. That was a big year for passing. Let's see if we can find something interesting here. This season, Aaron Jones was second on the team in targets. MVS, Lazard, who is going to be his teammate again, has only 46 targets that season. Again, not great. Really trying to find anything here for Garrett Wilson. Let's check 2021. Maybe the results get better in 2021. Alan Lazard, 60 targets in 15 games. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 55 targets. Man, it's really, really, really something to see. I to be honest, I'm going to be real. I didn't think after that loss last night that the trade would get done, because why would the Jets want to spend more cash on a 2-4 team? Why does Woody Johnson want to spend on a 2-4 team? This is my immediate thought. It's very good for Brees, because you can't argue that the offense is going to be better. The offense is good. They're gonna convert more first downs. They're gonna have more red zone opportunities. Now, I will show you guys particularly why this is so brutal for the New York football for Garrett Wilson, and it's basically because of the pace of play. The New York Jets are just so slow. They are, according to Pat Thorman, they are dead last in situation adjusted pace of play. You don't love that. And I wonder, so they played last night. Let's see where they're at in total plays run. I'm honestly gonna guess that they are very low, even in total plays run. So total plays on offense, Well, they're higher than I thought. Actually, look at that. They are 10th in total plays run. They're going to be pretty low in yards, though. Yeah, 19. So they're just above the Carolina Panthers in yards. What about when we do pass attempts? All right. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Right now, they have had more games, but right now they're third in total passing attempts. So even if situation adjusted, if you adjust for game script, maybe there is a little bit more meat on the bone. Let me just go adjusted NFL pace of play. We might be able to find some data here somewhere. We could look at plays per minute potentially. Let's see if that works. I'm gonna guess that none of these are updated. Yeah, none of the stuff is updated for last week. Malachi Corley drafters. Look, if you're a Malachi Corley drafter, it's over. The thing is I don't know if you can even necessarily argue that this is particularly good for Davante Adams' value. I mean, sure, it is good for Davante Adams' value. Better than playing on the Raiders. You know who else gets a huge win here? Brock Bowers is going to be the tight end 1 for the rest of the season. I don't know. I mean, if we were drafting again today, would Brock Bowers be a second, third round pick in PPR? Because there is absolutely no target competition left. Like, absolutely no target competition left for Brock Bowers. He already has 22 targets. 22 targets. I mean, look, sure, give Kittle some credit. Will George Kittle have one game this season where he goes 8 for 97 and 1? I mean, the potential volume there is so unbelievable for Bowers. Bowers is just going to... could Bowers catch 100 passes? Right now, he's at 37 receptions through 6 games. Bowers could definitely catch 100 passes. Not really sure, particularly if you are in the FFPC main event and stuff like this. Man, it feels like Bowers is going to kind of be the skeleton key for the season. My gut reaction to this is I'm downgrading Wilson, upgrading Breece Hall. Well, you want a real take. This is pretty good for Aaron Rodgers. If you have Aaron Rodgers best ball teams, if you have Aaron Rodgers, like the run to pass touchdown ratio for the Jets is going to be a good bit different. And I think that is pretty strong. Like what are their red zone splits going to be? Sure. I'm not meaning to disparage George Kittle. In no way should you take what I'm saying to be read as a disparaging thing for George Kittle. Here we go. We have seconds per snap. This is what I wanted to find. So the New York Jets are actually not as bad as I thought in seconds per snap. They're not that dissimilar from the Rams, from the Vikings. I wonder where they are at in no huddle percentage. The New York Jets are super low in no huddle percentage. Less than 8% of their plays come from no huddle. But this is the discrepancy right here. This is why there's been value for those guys. 64% pass rate, 35% rush rate. Their plays per 60. I wonder what their plays per 60 are going to be. So again, right about middle of the league, 62.5. So I suppose the death of Garrett Wilson, I mean, maybe it's a little bit understated. Maybe it really is as simple as basically great players make great plays. Davante Adams is a great player. I think Garrett Wilson is probably is Garrett Wilson a great player? He's definitely not earned that moniker yet, but he definitely could be. Yeah, Breece is definitely not dead. And Garrett Wilson is not that either. Because just because we couldn't find evidence, just because we could not find evidence of a second pass catcher thriving with Adams doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I mean, let's see if we can find a truly great Aaron Rodgers season where two guys thrive. Let's look 2011. Let's go all the way back to 2011. He throws for 45 touchdowns, 4,643 yards. Surely two guys got there on this team, right? Greg Jennings had 67, 949, and 9. Jordy Nelson had 68, 12, 63, and 15. Jermichael Finley scored 8 touchdowns. Why could they not replicate something like that? There certainly could be something replicated like that. Now, this is another great point. If you have Davante Adams in Dynasty, you could sell him for a first right now. Well, probably a late 2025 first. Yeah. You guys didn't know about Jordy Nelson. Davante, I got to update the YouTube title. Davante Adams to the Jets. I wish that I would have went live about 6 minutes later. Would have been nice to have gone live about 6 minutes later, but I'm glad that we were able to do this. So there's one example. Two guys got there. Greg Jennings would have been totally fine in 13 games. Jordy Nelson, as Jordan says, absolutely hooping. What about 2018? 2018. This did we already click on this season? 2018. Yeah, it was just Adams. 2018 was just Adams. What about 2009? All the way back in 2009. Do you remember where you were in 2009? Basically, two guys kind of got 2,000-yard seasons. I mean, Alan Lazard is kind of getting there right now. Alan Lazard and Garrett Wilson are both kind of getting there right now. So if they're both getting there right now, why not? If they are both getting there right now, I'm sure that it could happen. Where let's call it 34 pass attempts. Sure, Alan Lazard leads the league in touchdowns. So if I guess isn't that really the interesting question? If you send out, can Alan Lazard get sent to 0? Can Alan Lazard get sent to 0? Yeah, I honestly, I'm kind of forgetting that in the context of this. If Lazard doesn't get sent to 0, then we've got a real issue. Let's just real quick here. Let's look at Davante Adams in his career numbers with Aaron Rodgers. Davante Adams, what was the year Adams broke out? Because I don't want to use his shitty seasons. Davante Adams broke out in, I guess he broke out in 2016. So let's do 2016, split by players that also played Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams have played 79 career games. Davante Adams has averaged 20.2 PPR points in those games, 9.8 targets, 0.82 touchdowns, 84 yards in games without Aaron Rodgers. He's played 45 games without Aaron Rodgers from 2016 to 2024. He's averaged 17.1 points per game, fewer receptions, fewer touchdowns, weirdly more targets, but less yards. Yes, Mike Williams might get cut. I would assume that there is a good chance that Mike Williams gets cut. What role would Mike Williams serve on a team? Because if you have Davante Adams and you have Garrett Wilson, they have to be out there 100% of the time. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers loves Davante Adams. I mean, this would be a fun split. Lazard in games with and without Aaron Rodgers. This will be one of the funniest splits you've ever seen. Allen Lazard, 57 games with Rodgers, averages 10.2 PPR points per game. 14 games without Rodgers, averages 4.4 PPR points per game. You can't have Mike Williams making. Mike Williams, I think, is like, I want to say it's $15 million a year. Man, Mike Williams. Oh no, it's not that bad. Yeah, you could definitely look. You can definitely cut Mike Williams here. 8.6 dead cap. Can I? Oh, I don't have a Spotrac account. Yeah, Mike Williams. Mike Williams, I think sadly is going to be cut. I think we probably. I mean, maybe Mike Williams revitalizes his career in Kansas City. Couldn't Mike Williams come on over to Kansas City? I feel like he definitely could. We would welcome him. We would welcome him with open arms in Kansas City. Yeah, he definitely threw him under the bus. That's the other thing. He made himself. The Kansas City Chiefs do love cast-offs. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, bro. Yeah. I'm sure Veach did. Yeah, he came for a visit, didn't he? Mike Williams came for a visit. But if this is his contract, he's got a void year, so he can be gone after this year. He's already been paid $3.3 million. Yeah. So Mike Williams, I would expect to be cut probably by the end of the week, I would imagine. All right. Final recap. I've had a chance to think about it. These are my big macro takeaways. Adams is immediately way up the hierarchy of wide receivers. I actually disagree with the commenter who said this is an Adams sell window. Maybe a small sell window in Dynasty where you could get a first for him, but I would consider him a minor Dynasty buy. If we assume that Rodgers and Adams are both together next year, I think that is a pairing that ages pretty well. I would consider Adams a big redraft buy. I would be actively trying to trade for Adams in redraft. I think the death of Garrett Wilson is going to be overstated a little, but he definitely, I mean, he cannot have these crazy target games that he's been having. Like, you can basically just wipe this off. He has 33 targets the last 2 weeks. So you can basically just say, that's it. It's over. That is never happening. It's going to look much more like these games. 9 targets, 8 targets. That is his role. The other thing is that Mike Williams will be cut. Allen Lazard is going to be a legitimate thorn, like a legitimate thorn in the side. I wonder if Garrett Wilson ends up getting a little bit grumpy. I wonder if we get some grumpy quotes from Garrett Wilson. Huge winners of this transaction: Brock Bowers, insanely big win. Brock Bowers, huge win. Jacoby Myers, small win, and Breece Hall. Breece Hall, pretty big. What would I offer? What would I offer for Adams? You know, I would offer could you do like James Conner or Aaron Jones? Someone like, you know what I'm saying? Like your running back 2, your running back 3, something like that. Because the Adams manager is probably frustrated. The Adams manager probably has a losing record. So if that's the case, then yeah. This also, it does feel like insane malpractice. How like the Bills need it way more. You could, yeah. What if you offer, I don't know, you know, like who's the wide receiver who's kind of scoring? Oh, definitely London. Drake London is smashing. I just got to say, I do disagree with this. I don't think there's any way that this can help Wilson. Yeah, they just are not going to run enough plays. I know I looked at the pace of play stuff and it wasn't that negative, but you also have to remember the Jets have been trailing in a ton of these games. If the defense ends up playing well, what is the Jets schedule the rest of the way? Jets schedule. So they go at Steelers, at Patriots. So those are going to be two games that are going to be slower paced. By the way, I do think that Adams will play this week. I think that Adams will play this week on Sunday night against the Steelers. That's my estimation. I believe that he probably will. I think that, yes. Oh my God. If you could get, the issue is that Olave is not going to play on Thursday, but my God, if you could get Davante Adams for Chris Olave right now, huge smash. If you could do, that I don't know. Probably not. I'm gonna guess they don't. But you're asking the wrong person because I don't play those slates. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I disagree. I think that short term, this is really not ideal for Garrett Wilson. Maybe long term, maybe you can. I would have Davante Adams over Marvin Harrison Jr. Something you guys need to remember. I've been a Davante Adams slappy for a long time. I'm a big Davante Adams guy. Always have been. Loved him as a prospect at Fresno State. I've always been a Davante Adams guy. You might disagree with that. Maybe you're a big Garrett Wilson guy. That's the other thing. I'm not really a big Garrett Wilson guy. I am below market on Garrett Wilson. Let's check for Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers together in Best Ball Mania. There are more than you would expect, right? 4,146 teams. So that's the advance rate. So 4,146 teams. So let's just, another random quarterback. Aaron Rodgers and Geno Smith. Oh, okay. So maybe not. I guess it's about what you'd expect. Okay, so never mind. All right, what about Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and Garrett Wilson? 525 teams. 525 teams have them both. Let's see if these are any good. All right, immediate. 4 quarterback team. That's pretty funny. Here we go. Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, Jerome Ford, Kendre Miller. So a lot of zeros. Wilson, Adams, Deontay. Okay. All right. These teams are not very good. You know what? B-Smurf, you've solved it. Rodgers prefers Adams, and that is all that matters. Nothing else matters in this equation other than that Aaron Rodgers wanted to play with Davante Adams. And that's all there is to it. All right, before we get back into the BRs, there you go. There were 1,279 teams in the contest that have both of them. So there you go. One of them really had to have fallen, I guess, is what we had to do to get there. Okay, so Davante Adams is now a New York Jet. Brock Bowers way up. Breece Hall up. Aaron Rodgers up. Garrett Wilson down. I think that's really all there is to it. Now let's go ahead. I did finish that team off air. Let's go ahead and get back to it. We need to draft these BRs. These BRs are not going to draft themselves. Davante Adams to the Jets. Oh, here. All right. We'll do that real quick, then come back. Breece Adams combo. Breece Hall, Davante Adams, 4,253 teams. There you go. Yeah, I guess Jakobi Meyers theoretically up, but I don't know. Does Jakobi Meyers really matter? I don't really know if Jakobi Meyers matters. I don't think, gotta be honest, I don't think that Garrett Wilson gets traded. That would seem fairly unlikely to me. All right, we have the number 2 pick. Let's hope that we get a bink here. Let's hope that we get Justin Jefferson, who is pretty clearly the 101 this week in my opinion. We don't. We took Barkley 102 last time. Well, let's mix it up. So we took Barkley 102 last time. Let's take Kyren Williams. Kyren, man, what an incredible role Kyren Williams has in fantasy football. No one scores expected points like this guy. His game logs this year are unbelievable. Doesn't matter the score. 18 rushes. Look at this they get shit canned in this game. They get him a rushing touchdown. They get him 5 targets. They win this game. He scores 3 times in this game. Even in the losses, even in these losses, man. Even in these losses. It's really incredible stuff. I can see an argument, particularly with this matchup against the Raiders, why Kyren should go over Saquon Barkley, but man, the Barkley revenge just feels way too strong. I think the first round is mostly correct. We've got, man, I don't really know how often taking a first round quarterback is correct. Because then you just X yourself out of the Baker Mayfield stuff. It's really a very fragile way to play the game, as opposed to a very anti-fragile way to play the game. I'm gonna have to go back and edit the thumbnail for this and put Davante Adams in a Jets jersey on it. Okay. What do I want to do? Man, there are just so many good picks this week. And you are on the clock the entire time and you're like, wow, I can just keep taking good players. There are very few vomit-inducing selections in BR this week. I'm going to take, I guess I'm going to be boring, but I'm going to take Drake London here. Now, there is a small drop off here after we take Drake London, but I do want to show you guys some expected point stuff at the wide receiver position, because Drake London is a lot better than people think. I got a couple comments on the Patreon this most recent week about like, why am I so high? Wow, and we do get Joe Mixon, who I really like. This is where Drake London is at in expected points. 94.6 expected points. It's more than Stephon Diggs. That's more than Chris Godwin. How about more than Chris Godwin? More than Amari Cooper, who is like the expected points king. More than Nico. But look at where he's at in fantasy points over expectation. You know, he hasn't even really started smashing yet. That's kind of the interesting thing. His fantasy points over expectation are with a bunch of losers. Kayshon Boutte, Lazard, QJ, Yoshibas, Tolbert. So I think Drake London he's a guy I would be targeting over the field this week. I want to have quite a bit of him. Mixon, to me, also is kind of just an easy pick this week. I think that his role is fairly unassailable, and I think we probably are going to see Bobby Slowick and the Texans. You know, they're going to drift more run heavy, in my estimation, without Nico Collins. I mean, they weirdly actually had more dropbacks than I thought last week. They, I think 8 targets for Schultz, 7 targets for Diggs, and 9 targets for Dell, which is about what I expect their passing tree to look like. But Mixon has also been really efficient. I think I agree with this. I think Bowers is almost certainly the play this week. Hard to not be in on Kelsey, though. Very hard to not be in on Kelsey this week. All right, we are up. So this is a weird thing about this week. I'm going to take Deebo Samuel here, and I'm going to be happy to do it. But now I've set myself up to not feel that good about my quarterback slot. You know, I will be taking Purdy or Cousins. There's also a fairly secret hack this week in BR, which I'm going to show you guys in just a moment after I take whatever tight end I want to take, because my quarterback position basically doesn't matter. Hawkinson is really interesting. So on this one, is Stroud still available? So I'm actually going to take, well, I don't want Stroud with Mixon. I'm going to take Pitts on this one, and then I'm going to take Kirk Cousins. So I'm going to double stack Kirk here. Yeah, that is the hack this week. Yeah, the hack is that Anthony Richardson, no one wants him. He's not getting drafted. He is the number one hack this week with all these pocket quarterbacks. Lamar is not on the slate. Jane Daniels is super expensive. Richardson is a super stack this week. I would go as far as to say that I think you want to have, if you're doing 150 teams, I think you want to have at least 10 Richardson teams. Yes, these are paid out every Sunday night after the contests are over. You draft them for 1 week, 6-round drafts. You need a quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end, and a flex. Costs $7 to enter the Battle Royale, $50,000 to first place. 55,992 entrants, pick clock of 30 seconds, 10% rake. I don't know if I can open my third eye up enough to see Stroud and Mixon being positively correlated. You could perhaps talk me into it. Perhaps. You would have to do some real convincing, but I'm roughly open to it. So on this team, I'm going to take Cousins, obviously, because I have the double stack. But Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, I think is, I suppose it's Tuesday, but Jonathan Taylor, it's very early, but I would, just with an ankle sprain, man, running backs just seem to not play with ankle sprains. So we've got the double stack here. I guess I maybe should have considered taking JSN or something instead of Deebo, but Deebo, nothing would be standing in your way from taking Deebo on every team this week. You could really get as much as you want. All right, on this team, we have Kyren Williams, Drake London, Deebo Samuel, Kirk Cousins, and Kyle Pitts. Let's head into another one. Let's see what draft slot we get. No, I don't want JT, but JT would alter the Anthony Richardson projection. JT being active or inactive would alter, because I think weirdly you want Richardson more when JT doesn't play, because he's more likely to get the goal line stuff. There is no profit for being first place out of the 6 you draft with, only for being your overall entries. The payout is $50K for first, all the way down $5,000 for 10th. The min cash out up to 9,500 place is $10. The first spot that you get $100 is for 200th, but there is no prize. How many weeks per year would you imagine a double stack is optimal / wins the main BR? I feel like I always stray from it, and that seems like a leak. So I don't really like the concept of double stacking, particularly double stacking wide receivers. Now, we have seen a double stack win. If we look at the Battle Royale stuff, obviously in week 5 for Battle Royale, the winning team was Joseph Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, with no bring back. But in general, what we are trying to do, I think the right way to think about it is that you would like your portfolio to be some percentage, like imagine you have 150 teams. You want a decent chunk of your portfolio to just be parlays, which is basically trying to pick, quote unquote, the right 6 guys. So you take Justin Jefferson, you take Jaden Daniels, 2 uncorrelated running backs, an uncorrelated wide receiver, and an uncorrelated tight end. You just try and pick the right 6 guys. You probably want the largest chunk of your portfolio to be single stacks. So let's go back and look at week 6. What was a really unique, really common pairing in week 6? Let's look at John Boy Beats. So let's look at Trey McBride and Kyler Murray. They were together on 2,130 teams. But let's look at Kyler. Let's go back and make this pick real quick. Yeah, I'm going to do Mixon again, and I'm going to get ahead of the trend, and I'm going to take Brock Bowers. So McBride, or Kyler without McBride, was also on a relatively slow number, a relatively low number of teams, and obviously did not win any money. And then a smaller portion, but still meaningful, should be double stacks. I don't think that you should do no double stacks. I don't think that you should always double stack. I think that you want some portion. Do I think double stacks hit sometimes due to bye weeks in certain matchups? I mean, it's more so like what you're saying is it's more about the context of the slate. Like this slate, the week 7 slate, I think double stacks seem less likely because there are a lot of good games. We have Houston and GB with a 47.5 total, Seattle and Atlanta with a 50.5, Detroit and Minnesota with a 49.5. We have Carolina and Washington with a 52. Those quarterbacks are not particularly double stackable. We have Kansas City and San Francisco with a 46.5. So we basically have a lot of games that project to be higher scoring. That double stacking week, that Cincinnati-Baltimore week, that was a slate with, if I remember correctly from DFS, I believe there was only 2 games above a 46 total. So it was just a much more optimal stack. Do you think DK play has clouded your thoughts on double stacking? Like on DK, it's super tough to get a premium double because of cost of value. No, I think, of course, it's always related to cost. We always want to be thinking about cost, and the second piece, the double stack piece, is always cheaper, but there also is no salary cap element. All right, so on this team, we don't really have, actually, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do Jalen Hurts, and then I'm going to take Davante Smith, which I think is very sneaky this week. I don't think that's going to be a very common pairing. Diana Rossini just said that Davante Adams is in the Jets facility right now. I mean, that is truly, truly special. Truly, truly special stuff. So the Jalen Hurts, Davante Smith stack, I mean, there would be an example right there. You don't really want, there's almost no scenario in BR where you would want Jalen Hurts double stacked. I mean, he would have to account for like 5 touchdowns. Like probably 2 is a rusher. It's more palatable because it's easier. So it's easier in this because these guys don't project for as many points. Like the thing is in BR is that you need the nuts. So if you would have double stacked like here, I will show you. The winning team in week 6, had they done the double stack and had they gone Kate Otten instead of Trey McBride, they lose. Which is not to say that you should have never done that, but the barrier for the absolute winning lineup or the absolute winning score is higher. Because you have to have the highest scoring players. You basically need to find the optimal points that are scored, and that's just less likely to happen in a double stack. It's more likely that the winning team is going to feature uncorrelated pieces because there are only so many points available in a given game. There are only so many touchdowns available. There are only so many points that can be scored. All right, so we need to take a running back. I'm going to give away the special sauce here on the show. The early week skeleton key, Jordan Mason, A-Chain, and Kareem Hunt, and Brian Robinson Jr. are the super, super duper gold star plays. I'm going to do Jordan Mason. Why am I going to do Jordan Mason? Well, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Jordan Mason is an unbelievable click. If we knew that Jordan Mason was starting, Jordan Mason would be like a second round pick in this, even against Kansas City. He also has a Q tag, which means you can swap. This is a week with unbelievably good swap options. I mean, we just saw all the guys not getting drafted. So let's say you build a position where you have 25% Jordan Mason. You can swap him for Kareem Hunt. You can swap him for Aaron Jones, who's not really getting drafted, assuming that Aaron Jones plays. You can swap him for Tony Pollard. You can swap him for Brian Robinson Jr. You could maybe even swap him David Montgomery. According to Brian's numbers, these draft percentages from the draft caddy, David Montgomery not 100% drafted. Now, you might run yourself into a problem where you end up with 40% of Jordan Mason, but is that really a bad problem? That is an exploitative problem. Sure, you can swap for Tony Pollard. Look how good these swaps are. These swaps are unbelievable. Again, let's say we get a report. So it's Tuesday, October 15th as I'm saying this. But let's say we get a report tonight or tomorrow that Jordan Mason practiced in full. If Jordan Mason practices in full, where does Jordan Mason's ADP go? Jordan Mason's ADP goes to at least running back 7. Well, sometimes you lose. If Jordan Mason is the emergency third string running back, then sometimes you lose. You are not always going to win. In fact, it is very unlikely that you will always win. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. You either get Jordan Mason, who is one of the elite picks. I'm going to take A.J. Brown here. Feel very good about that. 6 for 116 and 1 last week. Well, also yes. So that's actually one issue with building a huge Jordan Mason position is you also want to have a really big Debo position this week, and you don't want them on the same team a ton, but there's really no way to control for that. Bijan Robinson's really interesting this week. I think you could make an argument that the better running back is on the other side of this in Kenneth Walker. I am going to take Bijan here. Again, I'm going to be doing a ton of these. Bijan could certainly get 16 carries. The thing about Bijan is he, he hasn't really gotten there on efficiency yet. He did score the 2 touchdowns yet, but we have not had the crazy Bijan long play game. And I know we're already mad at Bijan Robinson, but I do think people are sort of forgetting the guy Bijan was in college. I mean, this dude just used to crush. Just used to routinely get 150 yards, multiple touchdowns, scored a bunch, was a great receiver. Bijan was a great player. I'm going to do Diggs on this team, and I'm going to set up, I'm going to set this up as a Stroud double. Yes. You can just look at ADP. So this ADP column just shows players in the order that they're going in. All right, if I'm going to do a Stroud double, I should get running back out of the way. I'm going to do Hubbard. Hubbard is man, he is a super elite play. Yeah, but Keenan just scored 2 touchdowns, bro. Why do you need to cope? Keenan literally did just have 2 touchdowns in the most recent game for the Chicago Footballing Bears. Nothing to cope about. This does ring true. Bijan being the Najee Harris of Ashton Gene tease. That I'm going to be honest, that does ring a little true. But I'm going to pretend that you didn't say it. I'm going to pretend that you didn't say it. Not going to lie, this team is cooking pretty good. It's definitely not cooking if someone takes Stroud from me, though. So I hope that none of these other teams takes Stroud. Do you think the rest of the wide receivers dominoes go? Man, I hope so. I hope so. Caleb Williams only dropped back 25 times in that game. There were not a ton of passing yards. No player on the team saw more than 5 targets because they were up 1 billion points. The thing is though, if you knew that this was going to be a pass heavy offense, you would want Bijan Robinson instead of Tyler Algier. You want Bijan is the pace and space back. Yeah, the bigger issue is just that Algier is very good. That's true. All right, so I'm going to take Dalton Schultz here. I'm going to set up the Stroud double. That's Stroud, Bijan, Hubbard, AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Schultz. Now, look, maybe you could argue you'd rather have Jane Reed on that team. I don't really care. I don't think you need the bring back. So CJ Stroud doubles, I think, are kind of a secret play this week for 2 reasons. The first reason is that Joe Mixon is going to be, obviously super giga huge chalk. The other reason is that Schultz actually had the role that we would have wanted for him with Nico Collins out. And the correlated tight end, I think, is kind of a secret. I think it's sort of a secret of this game format, is that when you're doing double stacks, a lot of the time you do want to do it with the tight end as opposed to the wide receiver. We saw that with the Dallas Goedert week, but look at these snap shares. So basically, with Nico out, they played a ton more 12 personnel. We got 52% of the snaps for Stover. We got 9 snaps for Tegan Quintoriano. But then John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson barely played. We got 4 running backs active. We had a 3rd tackle playing, so they were playing a ton of 3rd tackle. You don't see that all that often. So a lot of super heavy format. I am probably worse at this than your average Battle Royale drafter, but I do almost always do 2 running backs. The scoring on Underdog is just so favorable for running backs. It's half point PPR, no bonuses. It's so insanely favorable for running backs. All right, we are going to go back and do one more BR. We did not cover, obviously, everything that I wanted to cover today because of the Davante Adams trade, but I hope that we covered enough to get you guys heading in the right direction this week. Let me just highlight before this one starts some of my favorite plays. Kenneth Walker, I think, is super strong. Brian Robinson Jr., incredibly important play. Tony Pollard, I think, is a secret play. Kareem Hunt at 25% or so drafted. And then Jordan Mason at wide receiver, super simple. Malik Neighbors, you want him a ton. You want Deebo Samuel a ton. You want Jayden Reed a ton. You want these guys. In fact, I would say you almost always want one of these guys. Some of the scroll wide receivers I really like. Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy, Darnell Mooney, I think is pretty interesting. JSN, I think is pretty good. I think you can go all the way down. Kind of like the last draftable guy to me seems like Christian Watson. But man, do we just have an absolute plethora of options this week. And of course, we will be back on Thursday. I'm going to take Justin Jefferson on this team, the clear 101. Beautiful. Yeah, honestly, I wonder if Andy Dalton is draftable. Because Daniels is so expensive, I actually wonder. I wonder if Andy Dalton is draftable. I'll probably have like 3 Andy Dalton teams in the Wildcat or something. An interesting thing though is what do you do? What do you do when you take Justin Jefferson? Do you want Darnold or do you want one of the running quarterbacks? It definitely could be a 3 wide receiver week. So I'm not, maybe we'll make this one. The thing about it being a 3 wide receiver week is like, man, how do you decide? When Tony Pollard gets drafted 28% of the time, how do you decide between Tony Pollard and Devonta Smith or Tank Dell or Xavier Worthy? I mean, I feel like this is, this is just kind of the way I'm thinking, but I'm like, I have so many ideas for types of teams that I want to execute. Like I'm going to end up making a bunch of different looking teams this week and just like a lot of teams. I do think Adams plays Sunday. I think the only difference between Mike Williams making that catch or helping the interception is if he gets cut or not, honestly, in my opinion. Could be wrong, but that is how I feel. Wow, I really wanted to take Jaden Daniels there. So I'm going to do, I guess this is a pretty standard start. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip Mixon, and I'm going to do Kelsey. I'm going to do something a little funky here, and I'm going to take Jayden Reed. So this sets me up 2 ways. I can take Mahomes. I can take Love. I can take Stroud and take Tank Dell. Plenty of running back options for me later, as I mentioned. Brian's best BR was only 34th, was up at the top of the while, but his best team was 20% Godwin. Man, truly, truly insane stuff. Yeah, Deontay is a good play. There's so many good plays this week. Like I just want to, man, I'm just gonna want to draft. I'm just gonna want to draft so many teams this week. Just feels like I'm gonna want to do, 300, 350 teams. Like I just want to keep drafting. All I want to do is draft BR teams because like Jordan Love single stack, Mahomes, Stroud. You could make an argument for Geno stacks. He's the quarterback 11. You could make an argument for Anthony Richardson, which I will. You can make an argument for Josh Jacobs having run really bad. So I'm not drafting Kupp yet. You could argue that's a huge mistake. I feel like it's a little bit harder to do the swap thing. Doesn't it feel like it's a little bit harder to do the swap thing with the wide receiver than with the running back because you want the wide receiver to be correlated? Or you might end up, yeah, but Kupp probably, if again, like the Jordan Mason thing, if the Rams say he's fine, he practiced, he's elite, it's all happening, where does his ADP go to? All right, so I'm going to do the Jordan Love single. And you know what? Let's do it. Let's do Tank Dell. 3 wide receiver team. Don't do them very often. Maybe it is. You'd rather do it with a wide receiver because the running back. No, that's the exact opposite. You'd rather swap the wide receiver. I mean, yes. So here's a little hint. do 3 wide receiver teams with Kupp or with Neighbors or whoever, because then if they swap, then you get to swap in a running back. So there you go. I like Anthony Richardson at quarterback without a stack, and Purdy, honestly. I think you could get it. Purdy throws 1 to Kittle, 1 to Ayuk, 1 to Mason, 1 to Debo. Neither of those guys score enough, but Purdy ends up being optimal. I could see it. Any Huntley to Tyreek. Maybe that's a leak in my game. Maybe that is a leak in my game, Cameron. But I would do a little bit of Tyreek, but I do not think that I would take Huntley. All right. Let's end this one out with who do we end this with? I mean, Montgomery is a good click, I think. That Minnesota defense has been awful good. Let's end this one with Brian Robinson Jr., who I think is underrated and, of course, can always be swapped. And the final thing here, before we get into the show on Thursday, is let's do the skeleton keys. So what is a skeleton key? It's basically, these are the guys I think who can unlock the slate. So let's go Sunday, main slate. I will say these are the skeleton keys. I think that Anthony Richardson early looks like the naked quarterback skeleton key. And I think that CJ Stroud at Green Bay with one of Diggs, Dell, or Schultz is right up there. At running back, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, and Jordan Mason are the guys early in the week that I'm trying to build positions on above the market. Those are my skeleton keys at running back. Wide receiver, super easy. Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed. I have not built a big position on this yet. You could definitely argue that Cooper Kupp is in there. And for my scroll, we've got Tank Dell as my scroll wide receiver. Tight end, even easier. There are 2 names, Brock Bowers and Dalton Schultz. Early week skeleton keys here on a Tuesday. Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, Jordan Mason with the Q tag, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed, Tank Dell, Brock Bowers, Dalton Schultz. I want to have a lot of both of them, but ultimately I will probably end up with more Bowers than Kelsey. This is a plus matchup, which the Raiders are not going to have very many of. Not going to have very many games where they think they can win. All right, boys, that is going to do it for the early week Battle Royale stream. We have Davante Adams to the Jets. We have early week skeleton keys on Underdog. I will be back I'll be back tomorrow with Liam. Thursday, we'll be doing more BR drafts with the Endgame boys, Nerdy Tenor, and Brian Hooper. Friday, the shows will be here as always. The Pick'em stream and the show in the morning with Reebs. I will see you all in the swolecast very shortly. Have a great day.